Hey guys, welcome to my show. All right, this is the first of what I hope will be many, many shows to come. And in this show, what we're going to do is we're going to build a corner cabinet. Now, as you well know, okay, we're just going to keep episode after episode until we have the cabinet completely built and finished. This is the corner cabinet we're going to be building. We're going to be building the case out of poplar, and we're going to be building the front will be out of tiger maple. Now, if you can zoom in on this picture real good, if you take a look at that cabinet, if you look at the inside, you'll notice it looks like it's lighted. It's not. It's painted. Now, through the years, we've had a lot of people say, well, we don't really want a painted interior in them. And that's okay. But I will tell you this much. Painting the interior in them, and usually we use an antique or an off-white a little bit, it just brightens it up. And whatever you put in there for display, it's just like you got lights in it. It just blows it out there. You know, it really, really makes for a nice piece. But before I do that, I've got to do a drawing to see who wins the prize. And the prize is the Worksharp 3000, just like this one right here. Use it constant. I'm supposed to draw a name. That ain't a bucket. Blondes. That's a bucket. All right, let's see who gets it. I couldn't tell you. Bruce Birch of Oak Hill, Florida. Well, congratulations, Birch. I guess I need stronger glasses. What do you think? Bruce Birch of Oak Hill, Florida. We got it right. Bruce Birch. I bet you can't say that Bruce, I bet you don't say your name real fast 3 times, do you? All right. That ain't a bucket. All right, guys, now I'm going to give you all a little fair warning. Heads up. The camera girl is blonde. And the problem is that the one the other one you're not seeing that's there in case one ain't working out, well, she's blonde too. So, here we go. Corner cabinets. Now, the first thing we got to do is we got to figure out what we're going to build. Now, everybody's emailed me, do I have plans? Nope, not a one. We're going to make it up. And I know everybody's out there saying, oh, well, I got to have some plans of whatever. Hold tight. Now, this being the first show, I'm going to show you how I figure out the corner cabinet. And the reason I want to do this is that from this point forward, whenever we're building a piece of furniture, we're going to kind of do the same thing. The reason for that is so you can learn how to figure out what you want to make. And you're not totally reliant on somebody else's plans. That you can do whatever it is you want. You know, this is just the truth. I guarantee you 90% of the stuff I build, I get a picture. I get a picture and an overall set of dimensions. Sometimes I get 5 or 6 pictures. I remember one time I built a sideboard for a lady and I had 43 pictures. She liked this foot and she liked this knee and it was a cabriolet leg. And she liked this detail on the corner of the door and she liked this molding on it and all of these things. And it was my job to put it all together and make it come out. So learning to build isn't just whittling wood. You got to figure out what you're going to build. And that's where we're going to start. So we're going to get a better camera angle so you can see what I'm doing. All right, guys, first thing we got to do to build a corner cabinet is we got to figure out, number one, the size of what we're doing. Now, what I did was I measured the corner that I want this to go in. And it's 32 inches from the corner out on the wall in the house. 32 inches is the most I can go in either direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out 32 inches. Now all I've got here is a sheet of 1/4 inch plywood that I just checked, and it's that corner square. So I'm going to draw out 32 inches. Then I'm going to connect them. That's going to give my basic shelf profile. Can't see my mark. There it is. All right. This is our basic shelf. Now let's look at this a minute. Here's a smaller corner cabinet pattern. And what we're going to be doing right now is what I call telling stories. And I'm not talking about the ones you tell that you got to have a new tool, or, you know, what you caught fishing and why you late getting home from work. I ain't talking about them kind of stories. I'm talking about a story in as much as how everything is going to lay out and the sizes and whatever. Now the reason, again, I'm bringing this in now is I want you to understand how I lay it out and how I plan my pieces. So from here forward, you'll always know when we're talking about, okay guys, let's do a story, you're going to know exactly what I'm going to be doing. All right, if you look at a corner shelf, this is small. This would be our front. We have our angled sides come back, and then the angle here to go back into the wall. And we always have a flat back. You never want to bring it to a taper. We'll talk about that a little more. But the shelves are the important thing. And this is based on the room. Now, that means that the maximum width across the front I can be is 45 1/4. All right, 45 1/4. Let's look at this picture a minute. If you notice, 45 1/4 is going to be this point, from this point right here to this point here. It's going to be from here to here. So that means that we actually can come out a little further. Now, if in the corner you're building for, if you have a restriction that prevents you from coming out any further, okay, then you just simply have to cut this back and it's not going to be quite as wide. Now let's look at that a minute. I did a mock-up of what I think, and I'm going to re-emphasize, this is a mock-up. I think this is where we're going to go on this size cabinet. And all this is two pieces that are cut on 22.5 degrees. And this will make what will be our side, right here. We're going to be setting in here, and this will be the side. This little piece right here is going to be the side piece right there. And of course, this is our side piece over here. This is 5 inches from the long point to the outer edge and from here in. And from here in, this is 2.5, this is 5. Now, why am I doing that? Because the door right here is also going to be 2.5 inches. So that's going to give me a balance. It's going to give me 5 inches here, 5 inches here. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my little mock-up here. And I'm just going to simply set it at my maximum distance, which is 42 inches, or 44 and a quarter, whatever it was. I'm going to set it in here square. Okay. So I just need to go in here, square. I need to do the same thing on the other side. Now, I know that I'm 5 inches from this point to this point. So we'll just measure that. I should have done that first, I think. Yep. Yep. Now, need to look right here. Yep, this will be my front. From that point, from this point, 5 inches up on 90 degree from the corner of the shelf, that's going to be my actual front. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this thing kicking out, coming out further. Y'all guys see that? You guys see that notch in my straight edge? I didn't do it. I really didn't. All right, this is our profile for our cabinet. Got it? Now, our face frame that's going to go around here, in my case, is probably going to be about 7/8 of an inch. Okay, if it's 3/4, it's 3/4, but it will be about 7/8 for me. And if it's a little less, that's not going to hurt anything. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to lay out my 7/8. Promise y'all, I didn't. See that cut? That thing made me mad. It still does. Happened about a week after I got this thing. You ain't got to have a fancy straight edge. Nice straight stick works pretty good. All right. So this inside line is going to be my actual face frame, or my actual shelf, right here. The outside line is going to be my face. Now, like I said, if this winds up being a little narrower, you know, if when I'm surfacing my material it's a little less than 7/8, so what? You know, don't sweat that. Now, because I'm going to have a side coming in here, I got to think about that. I'm going to make the sides on this 3/4 of an inch thick, and I'm only going to put a 1/8 of an inch dado. I don't need any more. So if I take 3/4 and subtract from that an 1/8, I've got 5/8. But here's another thing. I do not want the edge of this cabinet going dead against the wall. I just don't. If I'm fitted that tight and that wall's got any waves, any bows in it, I'm going to have a fit getting the cabinet in. It's not going to fit nice. Because in reality, what I want this corner right here to go against the wall. So I want to cut this back some. I want to make my actual case smaller so that my front not this much, but so that I've got, when I actually build this case, I'm going to have an overhang here. I want this to come back past the cabinet and the case. All right, that's going to mean that this is going to touch the wall or be as tight to the wall as I can get it. All right, so if I need to remove 5/8 from here to be perfect, if I take 5/8 and let's say I want to make this case 1/2 inch smaller on each side, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. So 5/8 and 1/2 is 1 1/8. Right, yeah. Hey, you think I'm joking? I ain't very good at math. And that geometry and trigonometry, I know how to say them, but I don't know how to spell them, much less do them. And you think that's a joke, but it ain't. So you guys who want to email me and tell me that it's such and such a degree, okay, go ahead. I'm going to look at it and say, huh? I'm an old country. You know what this is here for? That's my eraser. Where are these? All right. So what I've done is I've determined now what's going to actually be my shelf. Now remember in the back, I told you we're going to cut it off. Well, we are. So we're probably going to cut it off, I like about 10 inches back there. Let me kind of sneak up through here and kind of get a rough. Yeah, I know you guys can calculate all this. I can't. I got to kind of guess around a little bit. Let me see. Hey, you think, look at this. Look at the eraser. I had to get new pencils. Hey, I didn't do bad. 8 1/4 and 8 1/4. Yeah, I was fixing to do it the wrong way. Y'all didn't say a word. Just sit there and watch me do it. All right. That'll work. All right, this is going to be my shelf. But this is not going to be my shelf pattern because I'm going to make it out of a piece of MDF. But this gives me all my dimensions. All I got to do is measure it and figure it out. That's how you design a shelf. Now we got to get to designing the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a horizontal. That's a cross, right? Yeah, it's a cross. And we're going to do a vertical story. And let me show you how I'm going to do that. That's my shelf. Now I'm going to show y'all very quickly, if you think I don't do this, there's all my story on this little shelf, on this little cabinet. Here's an actual picture of the cabinet. A hanging corner cupboard. And here's all my dimensions. I've got these things all over. Here's my little dusty and dirty, and this looks like a bunch of scribbling to you. Here's another corner cabinet. See here, here, here. And there's little marks and little notes all over down through here, and this is my story. So we're going to tell a story on this one. All right, I want my bottom case to be 36 inches tall. 36. So I'm going to mark that. All right, 36 inches. This is the bottom. Case, top. All right. That means that's going to come in right here. Now, here's a mold, and I'm going to show you moldings. But here's a molding that I always use for a belt molding. And if you guys have watched my videos or anything I do, this is done using a one of those multi-form bits, and I'll show you all about that. And then, if you look right here, there's a little cove on it, right here on that bottom. So the way this happens is this actually sits on the case. This sits on the upper case. This little molding will be on the bottom case. And so what I get, let me get this right, what I get is I get a pretty little closure or a belt molding. Okay? So the reason I've cut this is, and I happen to have a scrap, okay, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to use it right here because this is going to go right at the top of my case. Now, why is this molding important right now? I'm going to show you. If you look at this picture, like I said, that little molding is sitting right underneath this belt line. The other molding is sitting right here. But I want the space between it and the drawer and the bottom of the drawer and the top of the door to be even. As well, on the bottom of the door, I want the bottom of the door to the base to be the same distance. I want this, and in this case, this is going to be about an inch, and an inch. That gives us symmetry, again, that balance thing. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to come along and we're going to figure out if I want this to be an inch. Now look right here at this drawing again. You see this has got an overlay drawer. An overlay means it actually goes over top of the face. It's not flush. And even though the doors are flush, it's not. Indicative of a corner cabinet. So, here's what I got. And I happen to know that I'm going to make this drawer 3 3/4 inches. I've done that forever. Just works. And it also fits real nice one of my dovetail jigs, so I ain't got to be messing around with it. And you'll see that too. That's the truth. So, if I've got 3 3/4 inches, is going to be the actual drawer opening. And what's going to happen is I'm going to actually overlay that 1/4 inch at the top and 1/4 inch at the bottom. So 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch is a half. I'm now at 4 1/4 inches. right? So here's what I'm going to do. From this molding, I'm going to come down and I'm going to mark this 1 inch. That's going to be what our exposure above the drawer edge. There's 1 inch. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to mark it. Let me turn this the other way. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to mark that 4, double check myself. Then I'm going to mark that 4 1/4. And I'm going to mark this too. Whoops. Y'all need to holler when I do that stupid stuff. I'm using the inch, so I got to go to 5 1/4. All right, so this is going to be my drawer top. All right, so this is the drawer top. This area from here to here is 3 3/4, and this is the drawer, and then this is the drawer bottom. Okay, I'm going to put me a note, 1/4 overlay. All right. Now I want 1 inch below that before I hit the door. Yeah, I know they got them flat tape measures. I got one. I got 2 somewhere around here. This is 1 inch space. 1 inch space. All right. Now I know on the bottom of this, I've got this base. I don't know how well you can see it on camera out of the picture, but there's a base on the bottom of it. I like a base about 4 1/2, 5 inches. This is a fairly good sized corner cabinet. Not huge, but fairly good size. So I'm going to go 4 1/2 inches for my base. That'll give me enough room to put a nice scroll. That is 4 1/2 inch base. Then I want another inch before, because I want to match those 2 profiles. So there's 1 inch. And that's just space. So this, we'll just call this space. All right. Now we know what the door is. Answered our question. But if you look, one of the things I like is I like to put a wider door bottom than I do the top, particularly on the bottom cabinet. It's pretty traditional and it just really looks nice. I'm going to put, let me look at this a minute. See what I think. All right, I've got a 23 3/4 inch door. So if I put a 3 bottom and a 2 1/2 top, that's 5 1/2. What did I say that was? 23 3/4 minus 5 1/2. It's 18 1/4. That's going to give me an 18 1/4 inch tall raised panel. Because I want my raised panel taller than wider. I think that's going to work out pretty good. But let me go back, but let's check it. Let's do the horizontal. This is the vertical on the bottom case. All right, guys, hold the farm. I didn't want to bore you with me laying out this horizontal thing. So, and what that equates to is figuring out where everything is going to lie in relation to the case. In other words, where the door side is, the window, the mullion in the middle, and so forth, so that we can figure out what will be the width of our raised panels and whatever. By going with what we had, meaning from 5 inches from this point here and the 2.5 inches on the rails for the doors and the face frame, it put the window in it just a little over 5 inches. That's just not enough. 5 inches is just too narrow. Now, now let me explain that to you very quickly. In a corner cabinet, because we have a wider piece at the bottom of the door and at the top of the door, we can get a nice deep shelf. But you really don't want to get much less than 9.5 inches in the middle. If you do, you can't get a plate or anything like that in it. That's even pushing. So 9.5 is kind of the minimum you want to be there. So what I did was I changed this point from here to here to 4.5 inches. Then I changed the face frame side. I changed this to 4.5, this to 2.25. And the side of the door will be 2.25. So as I walk over, I've got 2.25, which is the face frame. I've got 2.25, which is the door. I went to the center, came back 2.25, took that measurement, which I think it amounts to 12 and 3/4 inches, but I got the 1 inch mullion, so I took it out, and that left me with an exposure, my glass exposure being 5 7/8. I don't want to get any narrower than that. So I figured at 9.5 inches tall, I wanted to see what that looked like. So I went over and just cut a piece of plywood that was 5 7/8 by 9.5. And that's going to be the exposed part of the glass. Now the numbers over here on the left, which are 6 5/8 and 10 1/4, is adding 3/4 of an inch to each one of those dimensions. Why am I doing that? Well, we're going to be using a cope and stick, to make the doors. That's a good place for your router bits. And the reveal or the cut depth on that is 3/8 of an inch. So in order for my glass to fit in the groove that I'm going to be making, I got to add 3/8 on each side, which is 3/4. So I added 3/4 to the width and to the height. Then I come to the bottom. Now remember, our raised panel was 18 3/4 inches. And so what I did, well actually it was 19 inches, but by reducing the bottom here to 2 3/4, remember I had said it was 3, what I've done is reduced everything by 1/4. So this bottom of the door is now 2 3/4, the top is 2 1/4. That gives me an 18 3/4 inch raised panel. Now that's the exposed part. And it's going to give me a 12 3/4, same as up here, width. So just to show you that and see that, again I cut a piece and that'll make a nice raised panel. I've got good height and I'm in pretty good proportion here. It'll look nice. Then again, adding the 3/4, this will give me the actual size I need for my raised panels. All right, now what we have to go to is we have to do a story on the height of the top case. Now why are we doing all of this? And I understand this is the first show, and I'm showing you all kind of things here that are probably, a lot of you, it's confusing you. And I'm going to say this, that's okay, because I want you to see this, because again, as I said this before, we're going to keep referring back to this, and you're going to see how all of this makes sense. So when you're doing something, you can lay it out as well. All right, so this right here, all right, this is my side, my bottom side. This right here, this is my horizontal line. It's going to tell me where everything lays. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the top. Now, I've got the molding, and I showed you the molding. It's 7/8 of an inch right here. So what I'm going to do is I know that I'm going to go 7/8 of an inch. And, you know, everything in my shop's got glue and, oh well, including me. Y'all ain't going to believe this. This was a brand new sweatshirt when I walked in here this morning. But I had to do, I can't do nothing without getting glue all over me. Yeah, I know it. I told you I'm slob. All right. So I'm going to draw in 7/8 of an inch. That's going to be my molding. Then I want that same inch above that. So I'm going to draw in an inch space. Now, to keep things in balance, I'm going to go 2 3/4 inches for the bottom of the door. Then, remember our glass, we're going to go 9 1/2. Then my mullion, right here, that's going to be an inch. Then another 9 1/2. Another inch. Okay, this is the glass. Now see what this is going to do. This will give us 9 1/2 inches. Actually, we can cheat that just a little bit by making our shelves just a little bit thinner. So we could actually, because this is an inch and this is an inch, you know, if we make our shelves 3/4 of an inch, we're going to be picking up 1/4 on each one, and that's a half, because we can actually set the shelf kind of down a little bit behind the mullion. So we could actually get 10 out of it. All right. Then I'm going to come up here again at 9 1/2. Then I'm going to come over here. Then from 9, this is my top one. Then I'm going to mark my 2 1/4. That's this width in here. I want this point right here to match the side. So I'm going to go 2 1/4 inches. Then I'm going to go an inch above it. All right, so this is the door top, 2 1/4, excuse me, can't write, 2 1/4, and a 9 1/2 glass. This is a story all into itself. if we hadn't done this story, well, I guess, you know, I mean, I can sit down and mathematically calculate it out, and I would have known that those doors, those windows weren't, but I haven't calculated anything on this. This is me laying it out from the rough. All right, now, I've got a piece of crown here, just a scrap, because we're just going to be using a cove crown for the molding. And it's going to look just like this. It's going to sit right on top. But what we're concerned with isn't this part. We're concerned with the height. That's of the actual crown, which is how high this crown is going to set, which in this case is 2 inches from the top. So we've got an inch space here. Now we have to add 2 inches to the top, because this is where we want our crown to fall. Then that molding is going to be the same profile as this. It's 7/8 as well. So I'm going to mark it. So this is going to be the 2 inches for the crown, 7/8 top molding. All right. So here's what we now know. If we measure this, we're now at 41¼ inches. All right, I'm going to write sides. I've got the top is 41¼ and the bottom was 36. (77¼ inches). That's going to be our corner cabinet. And we got to do one other thing. We got to measure the side. Now you see, remember we're going to do the back here. We're taking off the back, so we don't have to go all the way to the corner. But let's go a little bit more. I don't want, and the reason I'm going to make this shelf a little wider is because, particularly the shelves, is that gives me somewhere to screw my pattern onto, so when we cut our shelves, we don't have any screw holes. But my side on this is going to wind up being, my finished side is going to wind up being about 24 inches, 23¾ inches. So, okay, 77¼ tall. I'm going to put 25 wide, okay, parentheses, because it's going to actually be 23, let's say 23¾ 22¾ I forgot to subtract the 1. Okay, so let's just make it 25, and it's 22. Geez, guys, I can't remember nothing. (22¾ inches). All right, so we need 2 sides. We're going to make these 80 tall by 25 wide. That's our glue up. We're going to glue it up, you know, make sure we got plenty of material. Now our shelves. We need 8 shelves. Right? Yeah, 8 shelves. The shelf needs to be, the actual shelf in this is going to be 18 1/4. Let's make it 19½. All right, it's going to be 18¼ actual. It's 18¼ deep. And it's going to be about 43 and a quarter wide, so I'm going to make them 45. All right, so I'm going to do 8 shelves. I'm going to do them 20 deep. I'll do them 19 and a half deep. 19 and a half deep. 45 long. All right. Now, what we got to do is we're going to come back and we're going to rough out an actual shelf pattern. And I'll show you why we're just going to rough it out. All right, I got a piece of 3/4 inch MDF. You could use half, whatever. All I'm going to do is what I've done is I've measured from this side over to here 45 inches. Down the center 22 and a half. Now I'm showing you another way actually of getting your 45. Now this shelf pattern, again, we're going to wind up cutting it down to the actual pattern, but we're going to use this for a glue up pattern to make sure we can get our shelves out. See, when I glue up wood, here's what I do. I always over glue. I always glue my, I never glue a panel up to size when I'm doing it. Now I'm set at 10 inches. From this point to this point is 10 inches. From this point to this point is 10 inches. All I'm doing is drawing a square. All right. Now, in order for me to make sure I've got a good, nice 45, all I got to do is go from the corner. Let me do it over here where you can see it good. I'm going to line up dead on my corner, right in my center, and that's 45 degrees. There's a lot of fancier ways you can do it, but this works. And again, this is just a rough out. And I'm going to show you why we need that. Now, all I'm going to do at the moment is just take a jigsaw and I'm just going to rough this out. Because again, this is just a rough size for us to use to glue up our shelves. And so then we're going to get to gluing up our shelves and our sides. Hey, I said we was going to rough it out. I meant rough. See, what we doing is we not building a corner cabinet. We fixing to build a corner cabinet. You understand? That means we're getting ready to. We just got to, we got to make all the pieces and parts. Now, somebody's going to ask me, well, for the back cases and for the shelves and all, could you use plywood? Sure, absolutely. Wouldn't be an issue. But we're going to do it solid. We're going to do poplar. Now, the reason we're going to use the shelf is I'm going to show you, the reason for this is to show you how to not waste wood. The other thing is I realize I cut this out of this piece of MDF. Could I have done the same exact thing we did on the plywood? Sure I could. I just wanted to give you another way of finding that 45. That's all. I don't know what happened there. Looks like I might have been using this for staining and dyeing something. It worked. All right, guys. Glue time. Now, I haven't put any glue on these pieces because if I did, I'd have it all over the place and you wouldn't be able to see nothing. Show you how to save a little bit of wood when you're gluing up a corner cabinet. First thing, take your rough pattern and just draw you another one on a piece of paper or something. Now, I didn't do that. And I cut a board too short. So don't do as I do, you do as I say. Make you another pattern out of some paper. And here's why. When you're gluing it up, you can obviously see what I'm doing. What I've done is by doing an offset, I don't need that. You can see where I traced it on here. I can do one way and reverse and do the other way. And you can see all I've got is these little corners are going to pretty much be my waist. That's it. What I'm trying to do, don't get out here and start gluing up big rectangles to cut these out of, or you're just going to make a terrible amount of waste. Now, comes the issue, and just to clear this up. They always talk about when you're gluing something up, alternating your growth rings. I don't know how well you can see this on camera. This one's up, this one's down, this one's up. That does help to prevent encupping. So alternating your growth rings. Again, up, down, up. The other thing you're going to notice when I glue them up, I know I've seen it on TV as well. All the clamps on one face, meaning I always alternate clamps. One up, one down, one up. If you look carefully, particularly at a pipe clamp, the jaw on it isn't perfectly parallel. It will actually put more pressure on the outside than it does on the inside. And if you glue them up with all the clamps on one side, you can actually cause that piece of wood to glue into a bow. So one up, one down. Now, even the scraps will make a shelf, doing exactly the same thing in a singular. Now, gluing up the sides is a straightforward thing. That's just going to be two large panels. Now, if you don't have the means to work them and glue it up as one big panel, what was the bottom of it's 36, so glue you up a 37-inch panel. And the top of it, as I recall, was what, 44, 45 inches. So glue you up an upper panel 46 inches and go. Working it in the short is sometimes it's a lot easier than working in the long. Now, then comes the question of, do you biscuit this or put dowels in it? If you want to, go ahead. I will tell you up front, I do not. All I do is edge glue it. I did a test where I took biscuits allow for good alignment. They're nice for that. But as far as adding a tremendous amount of strength, if you're gluing if you're using it as a mortise and tenon where you're gluing an end grain to a flat grain, absolutely, biscuits add a tremendous amount of strength. In a flat grain to a flat grain, you know, I'll be honest, I don't really see the advantage. And I've done some testing, and in some classes, we biscuited some, and then we just add glued some using the good modern day adhesives, and there was no issue. The other thing that I do is I always glue up thick. Now, I'm fortunate enough in the back, I got a 20-inch planer, and I got a 2244 drum sander. So I can actually put these shelves through after they're glued up and sand them dead flat. But I would imagine most of you guys don't have that. So here's the trick that before I got all of that stuff I used to use, because all I had was a little lunchbox planer. These are only 20 inches wide. I would glue them up just like you see. Then I would go back to the table saw and I would rip it right in half. In this case, these shelves are going to be painted. So to have that extra glue seam in there isn't going to hurt a thing. I would glue them up thick, rip them, and then take them back through my planer, then plane them all to dimension, to the exact thickness I wanted. Now, what that does is that allows me, in this case, it allows, that's going to put a glue seam almost right here in the middle. But this piece of wood is reinforcing this and this one this. And what that does is it helps you get them, it helps them stay straighter and flatter. All right? That just works. So in either case, you know, again, the sides are just a straight glue up. Now, I am told that I need to wrap this up for the first episode. And I'm kind of going to apologize a little bit, this being the first show, for so much time being spent on doing the story. But I must tell you, okay, as we progress through this project, you will see where that story becomes invaluable. I realize that some of you, it's boring sitting there watching it, so I apologize for that. But if you've never done it and you've never seen it done, it really, really helps you to be able to understand what you're doing and to avoid mistakes. So again, while it's one of those things that's maybe not real exciting and entertaining to watch, like I said, as this thing progresses along, you'll understand the value of that. All right, our next show, I'm going to have all my shelves glued up, the sides glued up, and we're going to start putting this baby together. Now, if there's anything in this episode that you do not understand, be sure to go to the forum that we have there for you and ask. You know, read, look. Don't be afraid to ask, guys. All right. Again, we've got everybody out here. We've got novices. We've got people who don't have a clue what I'm talking about, and we got people out here saying, yeah, I've seen that before. So don't be afraid to ask. Remember, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. Because we want you to get this. This is all about you, learning how to do woodworking successfully and as economically as possible to come up with some beautiful projects. See you next week.